afternoon, good evening. So by the dial, Regina Productions, Apataki Theater, episode 12. Today we are talking about the hierarchy of the spiritual realm. Today I'm assisted by one of my godsons, Robert Rouse, very good brother in the community. He works for Newark City Board of Education and assisting the young brothers and sisters. He is preparing to make Obatala at some point. He's scratching Palo Mayombe, he's a Tata. He's learning, he's in the temple. And yeah. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
What's good? Okay, so what we talking about today, Rob?
So let's start with spirit defined as consciousness. Could you expound on that, please?
Okay. In the book I touch on it about a definition of spirit, right? And we look at the idea of what is to be conscious. Now, in the definition of consciousness, we understand that it is to be aware of self and to be able to acknowledge one's environment and manipulate one's environment to maintain one's lifespan. So, any force or law of gravity, physics or whatnot is conscious because it is purposely behaving in a particular manner based on its environment and its interaction and stimulation of the environment. So when we look at spirit, we're talking about things that are aware of themselves and their effect on other things as well as their environment. So we look at a simple force, we'll use a force of magnetism, right? Magnetism has the ability to attract or repel, right? This is all based on the amount of how the magnet has been shifted based on the ions, right? The positive and negative charges and how they affect one another. And so at a certain point, this magnet can shift, right? So it's aware of itself and its behavior. Now, it is limited in its ability to affect its environment, but its immediate environment, it either pulls things to it or pushes them away, right? And we see spirit do this by means of evidence. So we understand that radio waves operate on a certain frequency.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So we understand the mechanics of this phenomena that we cannot see. We detect it in other ways,
okay,
outside of our five senses, right? So we understand that radio waves exist, and so we know that there are radio waves floating around in space from 50 years ago. Okay, so now, to understand, to be able to comprehend that, we should also be able to comprehend the idea that the human body emits a certain amount of electromagnetic energy. And so your thoughts and your words and your actions have a resonance and a reverberation through the universe that travel at the same, maybe not the same speed, but with the same distance as a radio wave or a gamma wave or an X wave, right? Right. these different things that we don't see with our naked eye, we can't detect them without the usage of instruments, right? So we understand that there are certain phenomena that is attached to. So, for instance, when one of your god sisters, her daughter, had to receive a heart transplant, the person that she received the transplant was a young Caucasian woman.
Yes.
Right? When I first met her, I had no idea what this was. I had no knowledge of any of this. So in the midst of me reading and I explained, I'm like, did I actually see a little white girl? Where did she come from? Oh, my daughter. Really? My daughter had a heart transplant. Makes sense. Oh, you know her name? Okay. Right? That's evidence that the spirit exists because I have no prior knowledge that she has something from a little white girl.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So through evidence, what they call evidencia and confirmation. So a perfect example, we're in Cuba and at the Misa and Lazarillo starts to describe one of my bovidas. Right? He ain't never been here. I've never posted a picture of her. Right? Not one that he would have access to, but he described the bovida to the T and described the same spirit wanted a pair of chancletas like she had advised in another Misa that he wasn't there for. These are the instruments that we are able to use to measure the spirit activity.
Like a barometer or something.
Certainly, because it does not interface or interact with the artificial, only the natural. And so the instruments that we use to measure them have to be natural instruments such as water, fire, earth, air. We know this because we know that spirit travels through air, and when we feel a slight breeze or we feel the hairs of our neck stand up, right? That's because that force is directly giving us acknowledgement of its interfacing with a spiritual entity, that the spirit is able to manipulate one of those four elements.
So is this one of the reasons that we would have like such an instrument as a bovida to be like a receiver, almost like a radio of these waves?
Certainly. So that these different stones in it are to pick up a different frequency for different types of spirits. So that a spirit that doesn't resonate on this frequency may find comfort in another frequency.
Okay.
Right? So that we're able to compartmentalize what is essentially, so like I told you, in one of the episodes I talked about my first bovida was a large fish bowl because it was something for them all to come to.
Okay.
And then as time goes on, then they begin to start to separate and have their own glasses.
Their own channel in a way.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
So, defined as consciousness, that's this consciousness that is you and I. When the shell no longer works, the consciousness will still exist. Right? This is how when people have experiences of past life regressions, right? They find themselves having dreams or visions of being in a different place in a different time, right? Okay. It's like the quantum leap kind of thing, that they find themselves able to transcend the timeline, right?
So you were saying like the God clock, the divine clock is more of like a cyclical thing instead of linear. How we think of time as just one stream of consciousness. He has multiple streams of consciousness and it kind of interacting with each other.
Well, imagine this. If God is in a single position, surrounded by nothing but space, it would emanate in all directions at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
That's what makes it omnipresent.
All right.
Is that it travels in all directions. This is why the yo-yo is so important in the Mayombe, right?
Okay.
That cross,
Yes.
it insinuates the ability to go in all directions at the same time. The symbol of the cross, in just its simplest form, is a symbol of God and God's mightiness because of the ability to be omnipresent in all directions.
Right. It's a 2D diagram of something that's more dimensional.
More dimensional than it's way beyond 3D, 4D, 5D. Right. It is, you understand? So it's that symbol, just the cross, just says, oh, that's greatness. It can go, it's omnipotent, it's everywhere.
Right.
This is why I kept saying that the cross, in its core, regardless of who you nail on it, it's still the same thing.
Okay.
It says that I have dominion over the north, the south, the east, the west, the northwest, the northeast,
right.
the southeast, the southwest, right? It has dominion on all directions at the same time because it is omnipresent and omnipotent in all things. Nothing can exist without it.
Okay.
You understand? So that goes into what we talk about the fish in the water. Do fish know that they're in water? Probably not. Only when they are out of the water do they acknowledge it.
Okay. They don't even feel wet. To them, they're not wet. Like, they're...
Their whole entire everything around them, in them, has just ceased to exist.
Right.
Okay. So they don't know that they're in the water, so we don't know that we're in God. Just like your cells are not that conscious enough to really be even thinking about the fact that they're inside Ra.
Right.
They're just functioning.
Once it leaves my, this collective, it ceases to exist. It dies.
Then it dies. But as long as it's inside Ra, it's all good.
Right. It has its own consciousness and it has its own life.
Right. So God, proverbially for us, is the ability to breathe in the air. This is why the Yoruba concept Ashe and Emi being the breath that God gave us, right? That God gives and takes away. Without it, we don't exist, right? We will be outside of the edifice.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So, understanding that if we are the fish and God is the water, then spirit is the current.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And so, you could go against the current all you like. It might be to your detriment. Because the current might be going this way because it's getting away from something else, but you're going towards it. But you still got the right to do it. Go ahead. Right? Or you could be influenced by the current and go with the current.
Go with the flow.
Yeah.
Life will be easier.
Yeah.
Right.
The current is trying to tell you something. Right? So for the dude that's on his block and he's going to try to sell drugs and get locked up. Come home, try to do it again, get locked up for something else. The current is trying to tell you something.
It's going against the current. Right.
You're going to be the dude they're going to smack with. They're going to give you all the numbers for something petty. Because you didn't follow the signs. You didn't go the way with the current. The spirit was trying to tell you. You did. Because the spirit are only here to influence. They cannot mandate what we do. Okay. They only influence us. In all of the major religions, when they talk about angels and demons, they say the angels don't have any sway over you. They are purely there to influence you, and the demons as well. They can only seduce you.
Right. So when we're talking about inspiration, which is breathing in,
back to the God
with the spirit,
we're back to the God.
Okay.
So taking what's outside of us and putting it inside of us
to inspire.
Okay. So now that deals with the breathing. That deals with what God gave us directly, which is this breath. When we stop using it, we don't exist. In Lukumi, we have a saying: all of the body is asleep except for the nose. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a reference to a person who is working even in their sleep. Because the nose does not stop. If you're breathing from the moment they slap you, your nose and your lungs are working.
Right.
Every other part of your body gets a rest. The eyes get to take a little nap. The ears shut down just in case they keep on, they're on low alert just in case something too loud comes and wakes them up. Right? Your throat swallows every so often, right? Your organs start to slow down, your blood slows down, your limbs begin to rest, but you're breathing, your nose is still working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the breath is the God thing, the inspiration. So the spirits are nothing more than the particles of God.
Okay.
You understand?
All right.
And so you can breathe them in and breathe them out. This is why when people are emotionally traumatized in a moment, in an event, they tell them to breathe.
Right, it's first thing.
Breathe.
Right.
Right? And in the breathing, you have wisdom inspire you to make the right decision, right? Because the blood is going crazy right now. It's rushing. All the blood is rushing throughout the system. There's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But the breathing, the oxygen, comes in and tells them to calm down.
Right.
Take it easy.
Right.
It's just a false alarm. We'll be all right.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the chicken going crazy back then. Like he's talking this real stuff. The chicken is going out of control.
Absolutely, because even your heart stops if you don't breathe. The heart is dependent on your breathing.
And so the heart gets its orders directly from God. It's the first organ established on the body before the brain. So before there was a logic to it, it beats without even being told. It's got its own program. So as long as the oxygen is being brought to it, the heart will continue to beat. Mm-hmm. Right? And so this is the special relationship that we see that a Legba has with God.
Okay. So a Legba will be the represented in your body as a heart.
It's the singular organ that you have in your body. Everything else is doubled up. Right? And so all of the organs are doubled except for the heart. The brain has two halves to it, so it's
dual.
It's dual, right? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 lips, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 sets of intestines, right? 2 parts to the stomach, right? The heart is the one organ that stands alone by itself, and it was there in the very beginning of you. Without it, you can be brain dead, but you can't be heart dead.
Right.
That heart stopped ticking. They can keep that shit. They can keep the blood flowing for a little bit, but once the body figures out that that's not the rhythm, it's gonna shut down.